Hi, I'm JB from Huffy, and today on Snug It Up, we're going to be talking about the 12-volt Land Rover Discovery and how to replace the soundboard in that Discovery. So these are the tools that you're going to need. I have a Phillips head screwdriver and a pair of needle nose pliers. These are going to help me remove wires and remove screws so that we can get to the soundboard in the dash of the Land Rover. So without ado, let's go ahead and get started. All right, so to begin, we're going to remove two screws from the seat pan. So one right here and one right here. Once you've removed those, you're going to pull the seat forward and down and remove it. And then you're going to disconnect the negative and positive connectors for your battery. You may need to use your pliers for this. I've loosened this one up a little bit and removed any of the safety covers just so that you can see. And so now that's disconnected. And now you can work on the rest of the vehicle safely without the risk of shorting anything out or shocking yourself. All right, so the first thing we're going to do once we've disconnected the battery is remove the steering wheel. The steering wheel has a little button on the bottom of the shaft part of the steering wheel that goes into the dash. You're going to look for that button and you're going to depress it and then remove the steering wheel. So there's a little button on the bottom there. You're going to press that and that'll let you slide the steering wheel off. There is going to be a wire in here, so don't go yanking it completely out. You're going to get your connector and disconnect that. Set your steering wheel off to the side. You can kind of just lay this wire back in where it goes here. We're actually going to be pulling that wire through when we replace the sound chip in the dash. Next thing we're going to do is remove the windshield. So this is part of the patience part. This is clipped into place, so you're going to have to tug on it. And you may crack a little tab on either one of the two ends, but the rest of the tabs will still hold it in place if you do end up cracking a tab. So you're just going to kind of massage and pull up. And as you do that, you're going to start getting the tabs to release. I'm going to do it on the same thing on the other side. There we go. So now my windshield is up. The two tabs that may crack are the ones on the ends right here and right here. As long as these tabs are good, you'll be good to replace that and put it back in place when you're done. So the next part we're going to do is remove a bunch of screws and remove the dash from the inside of the Land Rover. For this, you're going to need your Phillips head screwdriver. And we're going to start just going around on the top of the dash and removing these screws. And then you're going to find two more on each side by the door hinges. And once you have those out, you'll be able to remove the dash. And then you're going to have to remove the quick connect adapter for the steering column, and that is another Phillips head screw, and then you'll be able to see the head of that sticking out the top. You'll remove that. It does have a nut on the bottom. This piece does have a piece of plastic that's designed to hold that nut in place, so you don't need a wrench. You'll just need the screwdriver, but you'll need to kind of put your finger on it just to hold it in place. So once you have all of that removed, you'll be able to remove the dash. You may have to pull or push the steel rod for the steering column down a little bit so that you can get the dash out. So I'm going to go ahead and remove all my screws, and we will remove the dash. Once you have this part disconnected, so I have my little bolt that comes out there, and then just kind of removing my longer screw out of here. So that's the screw there. I'm going to just make sure my wire's not pinched by anything. Just kind of pull it up out of the way and give this a little bit of a twist and pull, and it'll come right off. And so you'll have that there. Set that out of the way. This is your metal steering column part here. I'm just going to start pushing that down, and it should pretty much fall out of the way. At this point, I'm also going to take the wire to the steering wheel and push it down into the dash so that it's not going to get snugged up and caught on anything. All right, so we're going to go ahead and just start pulling the dash. And I've already pulled these screws out up here. And it's going to be a bit of a tight fit just where it's at because of the wire, so don't try to yank the whole thing off in a different direction. It's not going to come, and you may end up messing up some of the connections. So this is the bottom of the dash that you can see here, and we're going to work through, get some of these screws off, and open up the dash so that we can replace that sound chip. We do have quite a few screws on the bottom of the dash that we're going to remove. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on this side, 1 here in the middle, and then 1, 2, 3, a third one in this corner that you can't see right now that we're also going to remove. So once we get all those out, we'll be able to open up the dash and get to the chip on the inside that we need to replace. So the screws that I'm removing may be a little bit of a different size than the screws that you removed earlier from the top of the dash. So I'm setting those into a different place on the floor of my Land Rover here so that I can know which ones to use when it comes to reassembling this. All right, so I have all the screws removed from the bottom of my dash, and now I'm going to just start to pull, and it should pretty much come right apart. There's no clips or anything, and that's going to reveal the bottom of the dash. This particular model has the sound chip glued into place down here. If you have that, you can leave the sound chip right where it's at and apply the replacement one up here. If your sound chip is already up here, you'll be able to remove it with the Phillips head screw and completely take it out. You may have noticed, if yours is screwed in up here, you may have noticed that you might not have had to take out this screw that was in this hole, or if you did take it out, it might have been difficult, or the screw might have actually stayed inside the clamshell. So if that was the case, you might have to find that screw where it dropped to, but we're going to be using that screw on this post right here to put our new sound chip in place. So yeah, if yours is glued into place down here, you can leave it there. It's not going to hurt anything by it being there because we're going to disconnect the wires and reconnect them to the new chip. We have our red and black one, which I've already disconnected from here. Our double yellows, which go to the speaker, disconnecting those there. And then the last wire goes through the steering wheel location, and you can just pull that through if you haven't already. All right, so this is our replacement unit. You'll have to bear with me a little bit. This is an engineering sample, so it may not look exactly like what you have, but it should look very similar. You should have the same 3 sets of wires coming off, and you should be able to mount it to either this post here, or you can zip tie it into place around the wires that are up here if you can't. There's typically this little circle on the board here that you can put a small screw through. If you put a screw through it that's too large, you may end up with a broken corner like this one has. If this happens to you, then I would recommend zip tying it into place around these wires, or you can carefully put the bigger screw through this hole and mount it there if you need to. But most folks would be able to get away with simply just zip tying this chip into around these wires here to keep it in place. All right, so I'm going to be putting this engineering sample into place here so that you can see just kind of the replacement procedure for it. So I'm going to take the one section that has the 3 wires, the red, black, and yellow. I'm going to go ahead and push it through the opening right there for the steering wheel. I'm going to reconnect the black and red wire. And then I'm going to reconnect the double yellow wire. with those all three connected, I will now mount this to the post here, or I can zip tie it there if I need to, because like I said, my example does have a broken corner on it here from doing a lot of testing on this to make sure that we get it right. But I'm going to go ahead and put a screw in there, and then we'll put everything back together and work on assembly. I'm just going to put this screw through here. Now, because I'm putting this screw in now, means I won't have to tighten this screw later when I put the clamshell back together. And I'm not over tightening this, I'm just snugging it up a little bit. You should be able to move this just easily with your fingers. You're just holding this in place. You're not holding anything together with extreme force or pressure. You just want this to be in place so that it doesn't move around and rattle later. We're going to put our clamshell back together in reverse order that we took it apart. So I'm just going to make sure everything lines up. And then I'm going to start replacing my screws back where they came from. And so start putting those back in. Alright, so that's the last screw on the bottom. And we're going to go ahead and put our dashboard back in place. So you're going to want to pull up on your steering shaft, the metal part sticking through the front here. You're going to want to line it up with the hole that's in the back of your dash. And as you do that, you want to make sure that the steering piece on the bottom goes through the hole made for it on the steering axle. And so you may have a little bit of trouble getting this to pull all the way up because it's stuck on that down there. So you can just feel around and put the U shape of the steering part back into place. Okay, so the next part is to put our quick connect bushing back in place. So I'm going to hold that steering rod in place and push that bushing on. Once that's on, I'm going to slide the screw through, and I'm not going to tighten it just yet. I'm not going to put the little nut on the bottom just yet because I want to still have some flexibility just in case I need to pull this back off while I'm finishing this up, and then we'll do that last. All right, so now that we have our dash in place, we're going to replace the screws that we took out. So the 1, 2, 3, 4 on the top, and the 2 in the front of the dash facing the passenger near the door hinges. All right, so our dash is now in place. Now I can put the little nut back in the bottom of the steering bushing, holding that in place. Just tightening that up. Next, I'm going to plug the steering wires back into place. There we go. And tuck these wires in there. Making sure not to pinch anything. and then pushing the steering wheel until it clicks in place. All right, at this time you can check and see if your repair has worked. You can turn the vehicle on by pushing the power button, making sure that nothing is on the accelerator pedal at the bottom. You can push your buttons. So we have our sounds back. All right, so it works. All right, so we're going to reattach to the windshield. This is one of our last steps. So make sure that it lines up in the channel everywhere. Begin to push down on that, and then just firmly click it back into place. All right, so you're all set there. If you've left the screws out of your seat, put those 2 screws back in after reattaching the battery, and you should be good to go. All right, guys, so I hope this video helped. If it did, make sure to hit that like button and give a subscribe if you want to see more information from us in our Snug It Up series of videos. Thanks so much, and have a great one.